Hello, my name is Dr. Scott Young, and today I want to tell you about my December healing experience. Coming right up. So I need to set this up a little bit. I was probably about 11 years ago, my business was almost near failing. I was struggling through so many different things in my life, and I don't know if I was trusting God enough. And God just really pushed me through a strong time frame where I just dug deeply into the Word. And I remember looking at every single definition of the words and looking at it in Hebrew and Greek and realized that there was something more for me to understand. Later on, I started to explore this and share this with other people in my church. People are like, are you supposed to be a pastor or something? And it kind of made me stop. I was like, what am I doing? God said to me this: if you pay attention to things that are important to me, I'm going to pay attention to the things that are important to you. It's really struck me in a very strong way. So I want to share with you the lead up to this experience. In March of 2019, we took over another practice in the Tulsa area as an audiology practice. And there's so much stuff that happens when you take over a practice, and she had taken over another practice, so it was basically a 2-for-1 deal. And we were working really hard at it, dealing with the database, calling patients, emailing, the whole shooting match. And we were super busy all the way through about May, and I mean more busy than we'd ever imagined. But around that same time frame, I think it was in April, I called up a friend of mine. I was in this office building in 51st Street in the Tulsa area. I've been there for a long time, and almost 14 years at that point. And I was wondering if I was supposed to move on. And I talked to a friend of mine who had a lot of business interests related to me, and he kind of helped me release myself out of that practice location. We started looking around, and we found this one place on 71st Street. It's exactly perfect. It lets me have this studio around me and all this abilities to be able to do amazing things for patients and for my ministry part. So once we got that thing going, we're still building the practice. It's going very strongly through 2019. We move into the new place here in October of 19, I think it was. And, we're just still working so hard. And Wendy and I really needed a break. And so we knew we were going on a cruise in November of 2019. But around that same time frame, my son was starting to get into hockey. Now, NHL hockey, which is National Hockey League, I grew up in Denver, and so he's starting to get into the Colorado Avalanche. And I'm watching the game with him, and he's almost 21 at the time, and I'm like, who are you? You've never wanted to interact in this stuff, And I just was amazed. And I thought, Wendy, for his birthday is 12/20, and I said, man, for his birthday, can we take him to a Colorado Avalanche game in Denver? Well, Wendy does her study. When she goes after something, she will study the heck out of it. And she's looking at, every seat and getting the right place. And we get these seats for December 21st, and it's the Chicago Blackhawks. And we get it all set up, and it's right around his birthday. Then we announce it to him, and he's totally excited to see his friends as well. So November finishes, and then into December, and I gotten this really strong impression from God that we needed to hire this woman named Sue Riddell. Sue's been a longtime friend of mine, a longtime mentor of mine for my book writing, for ministry stuff, and God just was saying, we need to hire her. And I remember my wife and my son were like totally against this. Not against her, but totally against the idea. And I said, well, you at least ought to talk to her. So Wendy comes into the office, and she has her own office there. And I remember it was the 18th. And so it's Wednesday the 18th, and she meets with her, and she decides, yes, this is the right thing to do. And she says, can we afford this? Yeah, we can afford this. Okay, so I tell her we're good. We take off out of town on Thursday, spend time with friends on Friday the 20th, and then we go downtown. It's 16th Street Mall in Denver. And we walk around Denver, and then we kind of go to the game early, and we're just experiencing everything, kind of taking pictures of the glass, and I'll send a few of the pictures to you up on the screen here as we go. But so we watched the game, and at first it was pretty good. Then the third period they lose. They kept losing in the third period, so we kind of took off a little bit early. You want to kind of beat the Denver traffic. And so we leave, and we get back to the hotel about 10:30. Which is in Littleton area, and that's called South Denver area. And I remember we decided we were going to watch a movie. So my son, tech genius that he is, he plugs his laptop into this TV, sets it all up, and we're all watching a movie. And about 12:30 at night, we finally decided to go to bed. Now, because when Wendy and I are in a hotel room that with a queen size bed, I roll over too much and just messes her up. So I did the first night, and the second 2 nights I decided I'm gonna sleep on the couch. And so, I go to bed, and as I'm going to bed, I have vertigo. Now, most people will know what dizziness is. I mean, they'll get dizzy, and they call it vertigo, but vertigo is a much stronger type of thing that has a significant spinning sensation, and I was having that. I kind of ignored it, realized it, but I just thought, I'm just gonna go to bed, get some water, whatever, And about 2 in the morning, I wake up and I walk into the bedroom with Wendy, and I'm like, I don't feel good. Now, I don't remember this. Within 20 minutes, she can barely wake up Stefan, get me downstairs, and I'm falling all over the place. She gets me over to the Skyridge Hospital, and it's gotta be like 7, 8, 10 minutes away. And they get down there, and I don't care if you got a boo-boo on your finger, and you've been waiting longer than I have. When they saw me come in a wheelchair, they shot me right over to the ER. And they set me up, and they're doing their basic initial evaluations, and they said, he's had a severe stroke. You should have brought him in earlier. And they were just getting after Wendy on this, and she's sitting there shocked. If you had brought him in earlier, days ago, then he wouldn't be in this condition. And do you have a DNR? A DNR is a do not resuscitate. I definitely had a DNR. And she said, well, of course we do, but you don't even know what it is. Oh, we know it's a severe stroke. They do the MRI. No, it's not a stroke. It's completely clean. Then they're trying to, get an IV in me. I'm ripping the IV out, and now I'm starting to become psychotic. And I rip it out, and I have blood spurting all over Wendy at the time. And that was traumatic in and of itself. And they finally strap me down enough to kind of get me going. They're having to hold me down while they do a lumbar puncture. That doesn't reveal anything. They do a CT scan, and they were sure, oh, it's got to be encephalopathy. Or maybe meningitis. And they just kept coming up with things. That day of Sunday the 22nd, I'm in the hospital, and she doesn't know that I'm gonna survive. I remember this one pretty clearly. They were trying to get some diagnostics from me. Now, one of the things that they will do, and I'm trying not to do it to the microphone here, but they will put their finger in your chest, and it's a physical response. It's a very common physical response. If you do that physiologically to someone, they'll normally stir or move around. I wasn't responding at all. That is a horrible sign. That's when they want to turn off the machines and just go home, essentially. And Wendy said, oh, no, I know he's with us. And so she gets in my face. Now, I remember her getting in my face, and she's screaming, Scott, wake up. And it's like I'm swimming to the top of the lake, and I get up there, and I'm so tired by swimming to the top of the lake, and I sit up, what? And I do the responses and I'm bilateral. Bilateral means that both sides are happening very symmetrically. Bilateral symmetrical responses are not efficient, they're not diagnostically significant when you think about most stroke issues. So all of the stuff wasn't matching up effectively. I mean, I could move my legs in the right way, but only would respond to some of the things. I probably was speaking a few words here or there, but it sounded like Klingon. I mean, no one knew what was happening. And there were arguments with the neurologist and the ICU physicians. And the nurse would come in and talk to Wendy and say, okay, look this up. See, I even was so psychotic that they gave me antipsychotic medications that you normally shouldn't do. And I'm not trying to beat up the physicians, okay? They were trying their best on this thing. And you could tell that they were pretty darn stressed in this. And finally they had to give me Ativan, but they had to give me a triple dose of Ativan just to make me calm down a little bit. But I remember trying to pull at the restraints. I remember trying to grab my iPad or my glasses.
What's the problem?
Gotcha.
Okay, no, I got your hand. I got your hand here. What's going on football? Scott, football.
You're okay. You're right. What'd you say? Less plank or more? You want more? Okay. Let me do that. On top? Okay. Here you go. There you go. Perfect. Yeah. Hey, love you.
I remember pulling at it, and for months, and even today, this is in April of 2020, and that was back almost 4 months ago, or 5 months ago. I still feel a little bit of issues on my elbow and a little bit right underneath my collarbone, like someone's pounded me and broken it. And so, I mean, I'm fighting through that night. I remember in that night as they sent Wendy home, and she's just trying to figure out how she's going to make life. I mean, she's going home back to the hotel thinking, I'm going to have to fly Stefan home for school, then I'm going to have to wait here long enough, and then hopefully I get him into a rehab hospital in Denver, or I'm back in Tulsa. I don't know where I'm going to have to go. I don't know what I'm going to do. Will the insurance cover everything? How am I going to take care of this? What am I going to do about paying bills? See, I pay all the bills for the business and for home, and I just try to take care of things, right? But she hadn't paid the bills. Wendy's smart enough to do it. It's just my job. It's just one of the things that I tend to do. But she's stressing as she goes back to the hotel, and she hasn't slept for just hours and hours and hours. And I remember that night, I had these outrageously amazing dreams. I'm in these dreams with demons. I see 2 of them here and 2 of them here at the foot of my bed. I am begging the woman to take the catheter out of me and unrestrain me so I can go to the bathroom over there. And she's like, no. And I mean, I'm fighting her all the time. My blood pressure is up at nearly at 200 beats a minute. I mean, it's just, everything is crazy, and I could almost know I'm acting crazy. I couldn't stop myself from doing the stuff there. And I struggled. I was struggling because I saw these demons and I felt attacked. These demons were just going on after me. And I've seen pictures of that room. That room doesn't look what I thought I saw in that time frame. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to express it in that way. The next day, Monday, my son calls up this company called Odyssey Group, which I am eternally grateful for. And it's a group that I've been with for, 12, 13 years. And he calls up completely stressed. I just heard from my bookkeeper, Irina, And she said, I just remember Stefan calling, and he had no idea. He's trying to figure out payroll and helping out. He's trying to get the information. And Irina was terrified at that moment. And so was all the people at Audigy. They were thinking, oh my gosh, we need to fly out to Tulsa and help him run the practice because he's not going to recover. And I had no idea how many people were praying over me and praying around me with this. And in that day, I started to recover a little bit. My friend Sue, who we had just hired, is just shocked and amazed, but she is getting some amazing scriptures. Some of it is, she tells me the story that she sees 4 angels, and they're just in a plaid shirt, it's just kind of normal, and they have their scrolls and they just flip it out and it becomes a blanket, and it falls over me and it just kind of invades my territory. And she said it was Psalms 91. Now, I hadn't really read Psalms 91. I mean, I know Psalms 191, but it's just not one of those ones that I jump into very much. And she had that same experience of demons and just horrible dreams, and then she had a very calm night on Monday night to Tuesday, and that's exactly when I started to calm down too. And but on that Monday a bit, I'm getting a little bit better, but they're like, nah, but he's just plateaued. He's not going to get much better than this. He's still not really going to recover. So again, that Tuesday night, they send her home, and she calls up at midnight and at 4 a.m. This would be on Christmas Eve, Tuesday, and she talks to this nurse, and he's going, man, she's my easiest patient. She's like, are you in the right room? And I remember waking up. Now, I don't remember when Wendy kind of came in, still a little bit confused, but I wake up and the PT, or the nurse comes in. He's like, so what do you want for breakfast? Now, I didn't realize he was kind of doing a little bit of a psychological test there. So I pick up the menu. Someone circled everything that I would have liked. I'm like, dude, everything that's on there, I like that. That's what I supposedly did. And he's looking at me like kind of funny. Obviously, that's something Wendy had circled in the past. And then the PT, the physical therapist, comes in. She's already seen me several times, and I can't barely walk down the hallway. She takes me down the hallway. She walks me up a little stair thing, walks me back here. She looks at me and she's going, I don't know, you look okay to me. The neurologist comes in. Now, I'm well acquainted with physicians. I know how physicians look when they're on their faces. I know how they kind of can know their emotional state. And the physician comes in, he's a neurologist, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude here, he's blathering. He's yammering through because he doesn't know what to say. He's saying, unspecified encephalopathy. That's the diagnosis code, but he had no answers for that. And he's looking at me, and I don't know, you look okay to me. ICU comes in. The young intern, who's the one that had been, messing with my chest and trying to do the neurological checks, is got this like unbelievable face of amazement. I kind of remember the ICU nurse, or the ICU resident at the time, stuttering there. The resident, and she's got a little less snowed view, but she is just, I can't believe this guy is looking like this. And the ICU physician, the attending, sits down, I shake his hand, and he doesn't know what to say. And I said to him, I said, well, when am I gonna be released? And they go, well, we don't normally release from ICU. And I looked at him and I said, dude, you never release from ICU. What are you talking about? You always step down unit someone. And within 2 hours, I'm walking out of the ICU. We go to the hotel, and I remember having a conversation with a couple friends of mine who've gone through some unbelievable difficult things in their life. Eric and Beth Ann have had a child that died of SIDS, that another child was on the bottom of a pool for more than 15 minutes and is severely handicapped. And it's a difficult thing. And they saw me there, and they just had this joy when I called them up on the phone. They were like, holy cow. As I talked to another group of family, they were just, I'm terrified. They were so terrified. And I just saw this differing emotions. See, when I woke up, the first thing I thought about is faith. That was the first. I didn't know anyone was even texting or talking to anyone. I didn't know anyone was really around. I'm going to show you a video in the middle of this. And we'll pause right here, and you can kind of see this video.
To get a dog, what kind do you want?
It's an open question, and there's only one way to respond to that effectively.
And what is that?
Some people say, well, absolutely want a dog. Other people don't want a dog because they are, there's more to keep up, and I just don't like it.
But you said a little bit ago that you wanted a dog that wasn't too big. Would that be okay?
I said that I would consider a little dog.
A little dog? What kind of and you said something that didn't shed, so...
Chihuahua.
Oh, a Chihuahua?
Yeah, it's shitty, but, So, yeah, I mean, that's what God wants us to do. And we will do it.
Yeah, you do it. That's awesome.
But
It'd probably make Wendy happy if you got a dog.
I think so, but right now it's just got so much work. So in January, we still got to get him up and running. And a little maintenance here and there, but it's still.
Well, maybe in March that's a good time to look at puppies, is in March, because then, the weather's turning a little nicer and it's easier to potty train them.
Oh. I'd have to get over someone to figure out what we're looking for.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a dog is in your future. You think so? Yeah.
And in that video, it shows me in that Monday state where I'm barely maybe 40% of the way, and she's trying to convince me to have a dog. Now, Wendy loves dogs. I don't care about dogs that much. We're getting a dog in May, so I'm all right with that. And so I remember we drove home, and I didn't understand what a lumbar puncture headache was, but within, I think it was December 26th, my lumbar puncture headache was so difficult to deal with. I could sit up for maybe 20 minutes, and it went on for 10 days. And I was struck by this whole thing. My wife didn't have the faith and wasn't, this faith warrior kind of thing. She was in tears. She was a mess. I've struggled with healing over the years, not understanding it. And I walked out of that place with massive healing. But I was also dealing with those visions around me. I'm going to tell you a couple other stories. I met with a friend of mine. He's the CFO for Oral Roberts. And Neil and Therese, I'm sitting there with them and I'm telling them the story, and they just have this, I don't know what to say to that, just this completely snowed effect. And I was like, I emailed the president of ORU and explained this thing to him, and he didn't get back to me, but I didn't totally expect that. And I said, if you would just mention it to him. Oh, okay. So I drive away from the Cheesecake Factory, I drive down to Lifetime Fitness where I was gonna work out. And I tended to get there and I'd go down to this exact same stall area, so I'd have one of the couple lockers right there. I'd change, and then I go into the sauna just to kind of warm up a little bit. And this is in January, so this is about 4 or 5 weeks into it. And I come out, and lo and behold, there's the president of ORU. I had never seen him before, and I'm praying about things, and things are happening. My other audiologist, 5 days after my event, her sister has a massive problem with the pregnancy, has the baby, and she drops into a coma, is in a coma, and we're praying over 5 days. 5 days later, she walks out of the hospital completely fine. Some of you, as you hear this story, you're just gonna go, I don't know what to say to that. And that was what happened to most people around me. They didn't know what to say, especially when I talk about the demons. They're like, some people want to say, well, maybe you're not a believer in Christ. Sorry, I am too. I've been a believer, a very strong believer. I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher of the word. And No one knew what to say about this until I met this guy named Robbie Grayson. Called him on the phone. We spent about 2 hours on the phone. We've emailed back and forth. He's written a book called Welcome Home, Lazarus, and he's had nearly the same story. This is a powerful story where he went into anaphylactic shock type system and went to the hospital and had demons going on around him. He actually thought of it as Valhalla, which is a type of hell. It's a different religious type of hell. He's definitely a Christian, and people thought he wasn't a Christian. And he got really frustrated with people because they would say to him all the time, God's going to do great things through you. Well, I'm not worried about that because that's not me having to do that. That's God doing that. He's done amazing things around me. Now, right now, we are in the middle of the COVID virus. The people are panicked all around me. I mean, they're panicked about their business, their hearing practice. They're panicked about, their life. They're panicked about getting the virus. And you know what I am? I don't have any fear. I've seen death right in the face. I don't have any fear. I don't have any fear for my practice. We're going to be fine. It didn't catch God unawares. He's not scared. He's not worried, thinking, who didn't tell me about this one? How come I didn't get the memo? That panic that people feel is because they feel out of control. And God was ripping all of those points of control away from me, away from my family, and teaching us something new, to trust in Him in a deeper, more powerful way. I started to understand that those demon visions around me. And in Psalms 91, like I said to you before, verse 6 and 7, it talks about that you will witness the punishment of the enemy, or the wicked, You'll witness the punishment of the wicked. It's kind of similar to think about a Revolutionary War child. He's a drummer and he plays the drums all the way through the war. This is maybe a 10-year-old kid that's experiencing the ugliness, the bloodiness, the death of war. That's what I was experiencing. I'm still kind of pushing through this, but I want to share with you, guys, stop your fear. Breathe. It's okay. He can do amazing things, and He's done it in my life, and He's going to do it in your life. He is faithful and true. Nothing catches Him out unaware. I have a whole video series. It's a 3-part series that talks about predestination and free will, and it is even more important, that series, afterward than before. Because afterward, one of the things that says in the New Testament 6 separate times, that it says, before the foundation of the earth. And it uses this very interesting phrase. It's an adverbial phrase that happens before it. And that phrase is talking about something else. But basically what this says is that before anything ever happened, God already knew what was going to happen. Do you think that in your situation, whether you've lost a job, whether you're in a health crisis, that it took Him unawares? But when you are in your panic, you're trying to control things like this. And I know that feeling because I was doing this in my control. I was shaking and shuddering with that. And that was just me trying to, come out of that time frame. And I started to realize, it's okay. People have noticed that I'm much more intense now than I used to be. Yeah, that's true. I'm more focused, I'm more purposed. And in Romans 8, 28 and 29, it says that we're called according to His purpose. That actually means, in Scripture, we're called according to His prothesis. If anyone's ever gone through a master's program, or most master's programs, or doctoral programs, they have to do a thesis or a dissertation. That And that has to be summated in a short paragraph, which is called a thesis. And it's what you're setting up to do. If you're going to prove X, Y, and Z in this kind of mechanism, that's what you're doing in those two. And the prothesis of purpose is that same thing. It's that purpose in your life. Guess what? You are kaleoed, called according to a purpose. My purpose is to be here on this earth for however long I am. I'm not worried about it. Why are you? There are some amazing things that God's got for you. Reach out like this and wait for it. Thank you so much.